Hello, everyone. My guest today is Sarah Bird. She serves as the CEO of Moz, the most trusted authority in online search with powerful SEO and local search platforms that improve the position of your brand, locations, and competitive rank in search results. Before Moz, Sarah practiced law and traveled the world. She regularly speaks about entrepreneurship, business models, search marketing, women in tech, and fostering an inspiring company culture. Sarah, you ready to take us to the top?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So for people that are not familiar with Moz, help us understand what you guys do. And then are you guys still pure play SaaS?
Yes, sir.
That's great.
We are.
And tell us what you do, just a high level in case folks don't know.
Absolutely. Moz is an all-in-one SEO platform. We help you win at organic search.
There you go. All right. Now, customers, when they're paying for this, I know you have a lot of different cohorts, but on average, what are they paying per month to use the tech?
Yeah, we do have a lot of different cohorts. We have over 34,000 different customers. So we could go into a lot of micro segments, but we won't today. So I'm going to roughly lump it into what we would call our SMB segment and what we would call our mid-market segment. And on the SMB side, people are paying about $1,600 in a lifetime. On the enterprise side, they're paying about $200,000 in a lifetime.
Okay, and can you just, because there's a lot of things that go into lifetime, right? For example, if your churn's really low, lifetime could be 100 years, or it could be 1 year if churn's really high, right? Can you help us understand what that means on a monthly level? So an SMB is going to pay what, $10-20 a month on average?
Yeah, no, an SMB is going to spend about $140 a month on average. And what's really important about that SMB side of the base at Moz is that we have a very organic funnel. We practice what we preach, which means we get all kinds of people coming to our funnel. The good news is we don't pay a lot of money for those folks, right? Our cost of customer acquisition is so low that we have a 5.5 times LTV to CAC ratio on that SMB side of the business. And we get full payback, including COGS, in month 3.
Okay, so basically a 5.5 LTV to CAC ratio. If LTV is 1,600, it would mean CAC is about $290 on $140 a month. So 2 to 3 month payback period.
Yeah. So it's a very, very profitable side of the business, but it's a very noisy side of the business.
What do you mean by that?
So it's interesting. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of customers who come into Moz. And for example, a lot of business owners who think I'm going to do my SEO this month, and they don't understand it as a job, as a professional marketer's job that needs ongoing care and support, and that actually blends art and science. And you really have to be quite technical and have the ability to make changes to your website.
Yeah.
So often they will come in, they will play around, and they'll quickly discover, oh, this is a real job and it's not really for me. And so they'll churn out. The good news is we haven't actually paid any money for those folks, right? They found us. So what's interesting is the churn curve on those first 3, 4, 5 months is really, really high. A lot of people churn out. But
what is that? Like 80%, 40%?
Yeah, it's closer to that 80%, right? But it drops off quickly each month, right? Month 1 is real bad, and then month 2, month 3.
And then it should flatten, right?
Yes, and then it goes to a beautiful long tail, so much so that when you get past month 9, we have an annualized churn rate of less than 5%.
Yeah. So this is, first of all, I love that you break it down this way, because a lot of people just look at churn like it's equal every month, and it's actually just not. It really isn't, right? So if you add 5%.
Especially in our funnel.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Most SaaS companies qualify their customers, or they're buying customers that are already qualified. And because we're not buying the customers, and you don't talk to a single human being, right? You just sign up. You just put your credit card in. For Moz, that means we have more unqualified customers than I think the typical SaaS company. And a lot of people say, Sarah, you got to fix that. You got to wow, that's a big problem. And to which I remind folks, it's only a big problem if we were spending a lot of money to acquire them, if there was a heavy cost of service or a heavy distraction, of which there really isn't, because they're very self-service, right?
Yeah.
So,
or if you're relying on a big valuation because you have to do the next round and not have it be a down round, and you need healthy SaaS economics, right?
Exactly. But we're EBITDA positive, right? We're EBITDA positive. We're cash flow positive. So
how much last year were those numbers?
How much last year was cash flow, or?
Yeah, either one.
Well, so last year, why don't we focus on this year? Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah. So this year we're about 60 million in revenue. Last year we were just shy of 60 million revenue, I should say. And this year we're going to be north of there, probably 15%. And our EBITDA is going to be closer to 15% too.
Okay. That's EBITDA 15%, you said?
Of revenue.
Okay, got it. So 60 million in terms of run rate. So December basically of 2018, you're saying you ended at a 60 million run rate or right about there, and you plan to grow to about 70 million run rate by the end of this year. So about 10 million in new ARR bookings this year.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That's great. Okay, so help me understand how you break down these two very different cohorts. So people find you. I want to understand how your sales team's operating. So start with your total team size. How many people on the team today?
We are about 180 people.
Okay, and how many of those folks are quota carrying?
Oh my gosh.
Do you know?
6.
Okay. Six are quota
Small
carrying.
but mighty.
No, that's good. So how do you model out, right? There's a lot of people that have these two separate cohorts, and they always wonder, well, if we have salespeople and they're harvesting from these kind of closer to free tiers, called $140 a month, right? What do we put out in terms of their quota versus their total pay? So a lot of people will say 5 to 6 to 7x. Some push it as high as 10x in terms of, again, total sales comp relative to the ARR target, right? The new bookings target for the rep. What do you put your ratio at?
Yeah, so we are targeting a 5x, and just to be really clear, right? Like the self-service side of the business is so different than what we often use the word enterprise internally, but really it's mid-market for, I think, how most SaaS companies would think about it. So if you hear me use the word enterprise, it's really mid-market by how most people would think about it, right? But we treat those very, very differently. And we're relatively new to the direct sales channel, I would say maybe in the last 3 or 4 years. And we acquired a company last year that is all direct sales. That company is called Stat. So that part of the company, that channel is run very differently, and the economics look very different, right?
Yep. Can you break down so 34,000 total unique customers? How many do you put in your enterprise cohort versus your SMB cohort?
The enterprise customer cohort is about 600 of that total.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So you definitely see kind of 80-20 rule.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
That's right. And they're about 30% of the revenue.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Okay, not as much as I would have thought. That's good. Nice distribution. So 34,000 customers total. Again, doing about...
And just to put a fine point on that, right? That is one of the reasons Moz is so profitable. It's because the self-serve side of the business is very profitable. And then we can use that cash to cover the cost of acquisition. So other startups, when they're growing their enterprise business, their direct sales channel, they need to take outside funding to cover the cost of customer acquisition as they're building up the business. And we use the cash generated from the self-service side of the business to fund the cost of acquisition and for that more stable enterprise customer base, which is why we don't need funding on the horizon.
Yeah. How much have you raised to date?
About 30 million.
Why? So you guys, but you haven't, when was the last raise? What year?
Oh gosh, what year was our last raise? 2016, I think, 2015.
Yeah. So you guys, it's harder for you to pull like I'll call it pull a Wistia because, they didn't only raise less. They could use debt to buy out the investors. If you guys tried to use debt to buy out investors, you'd have to, I don't know, probably raise like 90 million. They want a 3x minimum. Have you considered that? Is it something doable or no?
No, we have not considered that at this time. We're not really focused on that.
Mm-hmm. There's no pressure from those early investors to get liquidity?
No, I wouldn't say pressure to get liquidity. The business is healthy. The business is stable. It's also a great time in market. So I will say it's a conversation we're always having. And in fact, we have a lot of conversations, ongoing from people who are interested in the business and interested in this kind of business. I think as attention grows for SEO and as attention grows for the SMB side of the market, Moz is on a lot of people's minds. So I wouldn't say there's pressure, but if there's always hey, is this a good time? Is now a good time? Yeah.
You have put yourself in a range where you don't just have strategic buyers as options, but you definitely have the PE folks as attention as well. If you're taking 15% of 17 million to the bottom line, or about $10 million a year, or about, what is that, about $800,000 a month free cash flow?
Yeah. Right. There's a variability in there, but yes.
Yeah, of course. And okay, good. So 180 folks. Now, how do you think about, I want to talk about the retention curves you talked about earlier. If you add 3 percentage points before that curve turns flat, that's significant in terms of future cash flow.
It's huge.
Yeah. So you probably spent a lot of time on this. What do you have to get a new $140 a month user to do in the first week to drastically increase the likelihood they stick?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, there's a big increase if they set up a campaign. What we call is a campaign, which is you have a website that you're tracking over time. So Moz has a series of use cases. Sometimes you're in there and you're just doing research for a quick project, and sometimes you're tracking a campaign over time. we find if you're tracking over time, you're more likely to stay. And so we spend a lot of time getting people to say, hey, don't forget to set up a campaign. You want to look at this website and how it's changing and how the competition is changing. We don't want to have to rely on the user to come back and remember to run an independent one-off report.
Sarah, are these like life cycle emails though, or in-product notifications? You can't afford to put touch on $140 a month.
No, although, so yes, we have in-product notifications. We use Intercom. We also have, emails. We use HubSpot for various other kinds of lifecycle emails. And also we offer one-on-one walkthroughs to any customer that wants it. And there is a wonderful selection bias that happens. So people who are more likely to say, yeah, I want a walkthrough are people who also tend to be more heavily invested in marketing and marketers. So it's not like we don't try to touch customers, right? If customers want help, we are there for you. But we do find that people who tend not to ask are also tended people who are less invested.
Yep. When you look at, so we can ignore the two cohorts with this question, I think, when you look at revenue churn, right, across the base over the past 12 months, what was gross revenue churn? And then the second question is, did expansion more than make up for that?
So we don't have a lot of expansion dynamics like other businesses. People tend to come into that sort of middle tier pricing where the free trial is. They tend to stay there. That is not true for the subsegment of our customers that are agency customers. We find that agencies will grow with us over time, and more than just grow within one product line. They might come in at our flagship product called Moz Pro at that $149 price point, and they might stay there for a year or two as their agency doesn't grow that quickly, but they'll buy more products from Moz, right? So the expansion dynamic we see is more cross product than within product. They'll buy stat from us, they'll buy our local product from us.
Sarah, I consider that expansion revenue. I mean, you're getting more wallet share instead of upselling seats, you're upselling product.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I'm trying to make the distinction between the different kinds of in-product dynamics that we would have because the motion is different across the org.
Yeah. So what would the actual figures there be over the past 12 months? What was gross churn?
Yeah, I don't have the actual numbers off the top of my head for that.
Do you know if net you're above 100%?
In certain segments, absolutely 100%. In other segments, absolutely not. So there's a lot of variability in there. And it also varies by product. And so it's hard to say across the board. For example, in stat, yes, absolutely. Most of our growth in the business is from expansion revenue. So I'm being cagey, but not on purpose, right? But,
yeah, I mean, well, I'll tell you the reason I'm pushing, the reason I'm asking about it really is because, I mean, you told me $1,600 lifetime value on that $140 a month cohort earlier, which implies an 11-month basically life, which is, I mean, essentially not 9% monthly churn, right? Which is really, really high. But to your point, because your CAC is so efficient, it's fine. Now, the problem with that is, again, this is pure speculation here. If you're having conversations, whether it's going public or you want to buy companies and you're trying to get the company to take some of your equity instead of you having to put out cash, or you are trying to sell to a private equity firm, like these kinds of economics will essentially ding your valuation or the value, in my opinion, the value of the stock. I'm just curious how you talk around that. And by the way, that sounds bad, but I'm curious how you position around that.
Yeah. So I gave you the gross number, and as I headlined at that time, right? There are many micro segments within that, and so we don't consider that full base, all of them qualified. When talking to an investor, or explaining to our business or why you should, debt, or when we're acquiring people, we do these more micro segmented approach, and we focus on, hey, if you take out this unqualified customer segment, right? This whole segment of people who are paying us and we make money from them, and you only look at the qualified customer segment, 2/3 of our customers are unqualified at a growth level, just if you look at how the funnel dynamics work, but 2/3 of the revenue are coming from our qualified customer. This is on like an aggregate cohort basis. So what that looks like is our revenue is incredibly stable and growing, right? That we have this beautiful long tail, that we have qualified customers have a tenure of up to 10 years and an average churn rate of less than 5%. So
annually or monthly?
Annually, right? So that is the kind of churn rate that is that is enviable of an enterprise company, let alone an SMB company.
So if I was role playing though with you right now, let's say I'm a big, mean private equity firm. Sarah, you're exactly right. We love that you're segmenting this way. So basically what you're telling me is 2/3 of your revenue is real revenue. The rest is kind of fluffy revenue you don't actually deserve because they're not activated customers. So really you're not a $70 million a year company. You're actually a $50 million ARR company. So we'll pay a multiple on 50, not 70.
Yeah. You could, and you could also say, hey, those customers are paying me to qualify. All your other businesses, you are paying to go qualify those customers. The money that we make from the unqualified cohort covers not only their own cost of customer acquisition, but the whole qualified cohort as well, and allows me to cover the cost of customer acquisition for these whole other customer segments, right? That mid-market enterprise customer segment. So again, I think it does require a special investor who looks at this very holistically as wow, I could go leave that money on the table like other businesses do. They do. Other businesses leave that money on the table because they aren't as efficient as acquiring customers as we are. Or I can say, hey, that's great. They're leaving and they're not leaving with a bad experience. Most of them leave with a positive experience and just say, hey, I'm not going to get enough value out of this because I'm a business owner. I need to go hire an agency. And then we get enough value to go and grow the business in these other segments that are more stable.
Yeah. Is the company growing too slowly to truly consider a blockbuster, like an IPO that would be effective for everyone, or is kind of an IPO off the table?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't think IPO is a likely outcome with the growth rates we're seeing right now in the market. I think that you're right. Sort of a more a financial model that prioritizes cash flow, I think, is a better fit for us, and that certainly plays to the strength of our business model. Yep. There are many different ways to grow a company, right? And I don't have a judgment about it. Like, a lot of these companies that are IPOing, like, they are losing so much, they spend so much money, right? And it's hard to see when are they ever going to start making enough money to justify those valuations.
By the way,
right?
I love that you make money, right? I think it's a great thing.
Right. And it's fine that there are markets out there and there are companies that are growing that way. This is not about judgment for them. And also there are other kind of ways to grow a business, right? And ours is much more focused on fundamentals and cash and stable growth and creating what I consider to be a real business whose per customer economics are fantastic, right? Yeah.
Are you in acquisition talks right now with Vista Equity?
No.
No. Do you like those guys?
I don't really know them personally well enough to say whether they seem fine, right? They seem fine. Yeah.
Very good. Last question on expenses. You put out an annual report with all of your character, which I loved, wrapping out 2017, which, by the way, you didn't do for 2018. When's that coming?
I didn't do for 2018. You know what? It just ended up being not that important to me to do. But I appreciate there are some people who enjoy it, right?
No,
you're the second.
It's
you're
great.
The second person who has said that they missed it, but it's two people enough. If enough people tweet at me to say that they really, really miss it. It's been two. It's been you and one of our competitors.
That's funny.
So I mean, with that kind of demand, I got a lot going on in my life and running the company. It's like, okay, this is not the most important work for me to do right now.
Let me wrap up with one question here. This industry, kind of SEO in general, can be very incestual in terms of who's providing true original sources of data versus who you're buying data from to bulk yours up. In 2017, you spent about $3.5 million on third-party kind of data providers. Where, is that still about the same in 2018 and this year? And if so, what kind of data are you paying for to make your platform more robust?
It's a good question. So there are data that we acquire. Some of the data that we acquire is part of why my EBITDA is higher this year, right? My EBITDA has grown this year because we are so much better at acquiring data more efficiently.
Like cheaper?
Excuse me. And there are other parts of my business line where the cost is going to grow proportionally to revenue growth. So on total, I'm going to be spending less money on data and data acquisition, but there are lots of segments within there. So
yeah, well, like, I'm just curious though, what that data actually is. Who are you buying from? Like, what are some of the companies you pay to get data from?
I'm not going to name every single company.
No, don't name all of them. Just put a face to them though. Like, name one.
Yeah. For example, we have a data partnership with data aggregators like Axiom and Info Group and Factual, and they are part of this distribution system of getting your data out there. And we've recently partnered with a new platform called Uberall, and so we're spending money there as well. So
That's helpful. No, that's helpful. All right. You got a conference to wrap up. So I'm going to wrap up here with the famous five. Number one, what's your favorite business book?
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking about
Can't Be Lost in
Radical
Founder
Candor yesterday. Yeah. Radical Candor is a really a good one. You have to come back to time and time again.
Number two, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Oh, wow. There are a lot of leaders I'm following. I was just listening to Jerry Colonna again today on one of his podcasts. I think he's
which company is he with?
Magical and thoughtful. He's doing like the reboot work, but so he is, he's not a tech. You're looking for more of a tech.
No. Any CEO you're studying.
Yeah, Jerry Colonna, Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah,
I love her.
Number three, what's your favorite besides your own? What's your favorite online tool for building at Moz?
Oh, wow. You know what? We are big fans of HubSpot because I think email still works. It's great.
Number four, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Oh, 6, 7.
7. Okay, that's good. And can I ask you how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 40 years old.
I love that. 40 years young. 40 years young.
Yeah.
All right. And what's your situation? Married, single, kids?
Single and a kid.
Oh, good. Okay. Last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
Oh, what do I wish my 20-year-old self knew? I think that to really trust the journey, my 20-year-old self would never have guessed what's happening in my life now, would never have thought it was possible for her. And I think would have had some sense of like, hey, where am I going? What am I going to do with this? And I want to tell myself to trust the journey. I think that's what I tell my 40-year-old self too, right? I think that's timeless advice. Trust the journey. Moz.com,
almost at 60 million bucks in terms of run rate in 2018. We'll hit 70 million this year. The nice thing about that, EBITDA is improving, 15% EBITDA margins, so call it 10 million free cash flow to the bottom line. 30 million raised last round in 2015. Again, they got a sustainable business, a team of 180 people as they look to continue to scale and grow, helping people do a much better job at their SEO work so they can grow their companies. Sarah, thank you so much for taking us to the top.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.